You know, we've all got those sort of childhood heroes, haven't we? The things that we watched when we were very young, all the way back to say things like The Little Rascals. Do you remember those films that were shown at the cinema? I remember seeing in the reruns when I was a child, Casey Jones, and thinking that looked quite a nice life, you know, on, of course, the railway. And then Mr. Ed, the talking horse. Loved all of those things, but there was really none bigger for me, particularly because, of course, I'd missed it the first time around, maybe the second time around. But these sort of perennial shows never ever truly go out of fashion. We're talking about the brilliant and original Adam West and Burt Ward as Batman and Robin, made of course by William Dozier for 20th Century Fox, and really was skittered at when it first came out, you know, because it was seen as just throwaway rubbish. But of course throwaway rubbish can have a lot of nostalgic effect. Many years down the line, you and I watched that with a lot of affection, looking back at what we consider to be the golden days. Of course, these could be golden days to another generation moving forward. But way back in April 1967, Batman came to London, and here's why. Morning, good to see you. Thank you so much as ever for joining me. I feel like I should have a Cape Crusader sort of look on me. Do you remember when they sold all of those sort of stuff and you had to get your kids it, didn't you? Because they just nattered you to get them, you know. And really, it was kind of heavy marketing, I suppose, wasn't it? But Batman, I was lucky enough to meet Adam West, who played that role. And what was fascinating about Adam West was he had this sort of love-hate relationship with it, because obviously it had made him, you know, a huge star, but he had already been in things like The Detectives with Robert Taylor, which had also been a colossal TV giant for him. But it was that role, like all the guest stars in Batman, you know, like Cesar Romero, Eartha Kitt as Catwoman, and just those skits of very famous people. Like I remember Batman and Robin climbing up the side of a building and the window opening with Sammy Davis Jr. popping out. Ridiculous fun, but that's really what made it dynamic, to coin a phrase. So what was Batman actually doing over here in the United Kingdom? Well, you see, for my generation, we'd already had this, and this was by a guy called Dave Prowse. Now, Dave Prowse was a bodybuilder stroke actor, and when I was working in the record industry, actually had his very own gym opposite the studios. He was that popular. He, of course, really shot to fame as being part of the very first Star Wars franchise. That's what really put him on the map. But way back in the Summer of Love of April 1967, Batman Adam West hit town, all thanks to the Ministry for Transport. You see, they decided that Adam would be the ideal person to teach us, the little people as it were, how to cross the road. And what you're really seeing in this particular video is just the fact that he's saying you've got to stop, you've got to look, you've got to listen, look this way, look that way. But it really sort of resonates when you're that age, if you like that particular character, the Cape Crusader. Now, the reason why Adam actually was over here, he told me this, was they filmed this very early in the morning. They had to, particularly at the Houses of Parliament before all the tourisms and stuff like that arrived. And then where they filmed out in Kennington, that had to be done early too. But you see, what he was really trying to do, get this, was actually look for more work, more serious work, particularly on the West End stage. And there was a muted Batman the musical, which he was talking to people about, you know, big heavy hitters of that particular period in the middle 60s. As he pointed out, this wasn't really out of character for something like this, because as he said, you know, we were sort of edging towards the Summer of Love. We got the Beatles, the Sgt. Pepper, everything was very free and easy. And to have a Cape Crusader teaching your child how to cross the road was just brilliant. However, the story goes behind the scenes, and Adam told me this, that the reason why Burt Ward wasn't included in this was simply the fact that the budget didn't necessarily stretch to having both of them over here. You know, hotel flights, all of that sort of stuff. And they felt it would be more prolific really with just Batman. However, another source pointed out that in fact Burt and Adam weren't not on the very best of terms of that particular period, you know, both fighting out for supremacy, billing who was the most popular, you know, the sort of thing. So consequently, this wonderful piece of iconic film that had allegedly been lost for many years but rediscovered a couple of years back now, well, apparently according to Adam, he hadn't seen it for years either. And that's simply because he thought it was just a throwaway gimmick, something that he was making for schools, and he never actually thought it would become so nostalgic. He, in fact, didn't have a copy when he left here, the United Kingdom, to go back to America. Of course, Adam became a huge star in his own right, even without Batman. Apparently, he was considered to be the very first Blake Carrington for Dynasty via Aaron Spelling. Oh yes, and you could imagine him in that, couldn't you, really? A little bit older, and then of course a little bit more suave. But of course they went along with John Forsyth, so he lost that out. Later on in his career, he decided to voice into Family Guy and really sort of take the mickey out of everything that made him famous. But for me, he will always be the original, and some say the very best, Batman. How about you? Neil Sean in the very heart of London.